Hi, my name is Kirsten Carmel, and I created a visual representation of the menstrual cycle. There are some key locations of the menstrual cycle. Number one is the ovaries, which are the site of the ovarian cycle. Number two is the uterus, which is the site of the endometrial cycle. Number three is the hypothalamus of the brain, which regulates ovulation. And number four is the anterior pituitary, which sends its hormones directly to the ovaries. Days 1 through 5 out of our 28-day cycle. Once puberty is reached, the hypothalamus will release gonadotropin-releasing hormones, also called GnRH, which stimulate the anterior pituitary gland to secrete varying levels of follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. In the ovaries, FSH causes follicles to grow, which will increase estrogen production. This is the follicular ovarian phase. 5 to 8 follicles will begin to develop. As estrogen rises, the pituitary gland aids in secreting less FSH and more LH. Meanwhile, in the uterus, declining progesterone levels in turn cause the spiral arterioles feeding the functional layer of the endometrium to constrict. Decreased blood flow to the endometrium leads to the shedding of the zona functionalis. This is called menses, or what you and I might call a period. This aids in getting rid of any menstrual material within the uterus from the previous cycle. This is the endometrial menstrual phase. Okay, on to days 5 through 14 of 28. In the ovaries, the ovarian follicular phase is in full swing. 5 to 8 follicles grow, but only one usually makes it to maturity. That mature follicle is also known as the Graafian follicle. The other follicles will eventually degenerate. LH will increase rapidly 24 to 36 hours before ovulation, and it'll reach its peak about 10 to 12 hours before ovulation. The LH surge is what triggers ovulation on about day 14. Meanwhile, in the uterus, estrogen stimulates the superficial layer of the endometrium to regenerate and grow during the endometrial proliferative phase. This phase will last until luteinization of the Graafian follicle around ovulation. Progesterone secreted by the ovaries causes the spiral arteries and endometrial glands to enlarge. The endometrial proliferative phase lasts until ovulation occurs on about day 14. Now on to days 15 through 28. In the ovary, the ovarian luteal phase begins with ovulation. Cells in the lining of the ruptured follicle begin to multiply and create the corpus luteum, also called the yellow body. Luteinization is stimulated by the LH surge. The corpus luteum immediately begins to secrete progesterone. 9 to 11 days after ovulation, the corpus luteum degenerates and progesterone levels begin to go down. Meanwhile, in the uterus, it is now the endometrial secretory phase. The ruptured follicle becomes the corpus luteum. The endometrium is at its thickest, 7 to 14 millimeters. This is where the egg would most likely implant itself if it were fertilized. Days 1 through 5, again. Our ovarian cycle begins again with the first day of menstruation, where declining progesterone levels cause spiral arterioles to constrict. This causes decreased blood flow to the endometrium, which causes the shedding of the zona functionalis. This happens during the first 5 days of the ovarian follicular phase. Fin, well, more like infinity, or that's what it feels like. You see, it doesn't really end here. You're lucky enough to repeat this every 28 days from puberty, roughly age 11 to 13, until age 50 or thereabouts. Thanks for watching.